Good evening, everybody. This is John with WIO Support coming to you from our home office in Cheyenne. Having a great time tonight. Uh, on the line, we've got Jackson and Artie. If you would say hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good evening, afternoon.
Evening, afternoon.
Depends on time zone.
It's evening times. It's evening time somewhere, right?
Middle of the night.
Well, yeah. I guess around the globe, everywhere is some time of the day. So yeah, we've got a fantastic show tonight. Gonna have some great discussions on a number of subjects. Biggest one, we've got a new product that we'll talk about at the very end of the podcast. But let's see, we've got IoT vulnerabilities. We've got AI bots are being used for hacking both offense and defense. Artie, you want to read the rest?
Sure. Pull it up. Um, so we've got some NSA security recommendations that we didn't get to last time. Um, and we have got a Twitter scam that may not affect a lot of people, but it's still one to look out for. Um, and we've got Microsoft recall.
Yeah, that's a that's an interesting one. Jackson, you remember the conversation on recall?
Oh, I do. We're actually recalling that conversation right now, if you might.
I love opening the door for puns. It just makes the day better.
They never leave.
Just like dad jokes, right? They are forever.
Pretty much.
So recall, Microsoft has done an about face on their product. They removed it from uh, what do you want to say, the default on position. So in the Copilot preview, recall has to be enabled instead of you having to figure out how to disable it. So um, kind of a cool thing. Jackson, what do you think?
Thank goodness. I hate it when they have things turned on by default, especially when it comes to something like that. That's a huge privacy thing, you know. And not to say it was us, but they did release that announcement the day after last week's podcast, wasn't it?
Yep.
That's true. Last Friday, they made the announcement that they're gonna reconsider and turn off recall. So yeah, no, it's I can't we can't say that it was our podcast that nudged them over the edge, but the coincidence is not lost on us. So
So, any other features, that our viewers might want with Windows, just go ahead and comment them here, and we will discuss them. And within about a week, they'll be up.
yeah, no warranty expressed or implied. Void were prohibited.
Anyone else, that is a joke.
Yep. Yeah, we have absolutely zero influence on Microsoft. Just stand here and talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the fact that Microsoft's marketing department was saying this is the best thing ever, and when they started talking about it, the entire security community got together and said, "Time out. you gotta you gotta take
Please,
a
please
good look
don't.
at this.
It wasn't
Yeah,
just
please don't."
saying timeout, it was demonstrating why they shouldn't do it by, bringing proofs of concept. Because, I mean, you got multiple security communities that have multiple ways of exploiting this. It's
Yep.
it's it's good to have it there. The other thing that goes with that is that Microsoft has um, also taken the steps to improve the security around it. So if you do activate it, it's not going to be as vulnerable because they were taking into account all of these exploits that were shown for it. So they are trying to secure it better.
Which I think when you
And that was
explained it to me, Artie, was pretty funny because essentially Microsoft came out and said, "Oh, look at this amazing new tool we've created. It's so secure, it has no problems." And immediately the Microsoft community was like, "Actually, here's like 7 exploits."
yeah, I think every security researcher that put their hands on it found a way to break the security posture. One of the things that I do want to congratulate Microsoft on is their rapid response to the community saying, "Don't do this." One of the steps that they did take was, and get this, they wanted to actually encrypt the database. As of last week, that database was clear text. So if you could
Mhm.
hack into the folder, which requires you to right click and say grant permissions, um, you could open up the database and see everything in clear text, including names, potentially passwords. Everything the system harvested was there in the clear. So the fact that they decided to encrypt that is a good thing. I just wish they would do a security analysis before they rolled out the product.
Mhm. Which, to be fair, it hasn't been rolled out yet. But I mean, they announced it as a ready to go product.
Oh, it's I would say it's in preview, right? You can get
Yeah.
it on specific computers in specific ways with, you know, it's not hidden, but like you say, it's announced, it's installed, and people are using it, and people are hacking through it. So it's it's a thing. But I just again, let's hope let's hope security starts turning into the priority instead of features. But yeah, what else have we got on our topics here? We've got IoT vulnerabilities. Artie, talk us through that.
So there was some security research done recently. Every year they go through and they, do a looking at the old and all the old information from the past year and seeing what has been more or less implemented or where the biggest vulnerabilities are. And they found that the vulnerabilities in IoT devices have increased, but uh, the amount of the attacks that have been going through them have decreased. But the fact that the attack surface has increased. If I had read the thing more recently, I would be able to tell you better. So I apologize.
No
Um,
worries. And the attack surface of Internet of Things is really just one of those ambiguities, right? You know, Jackson, if I told you that I could hack into a color changing light bulb, would you be worried? Would you be concerned?
My initial reaction is like, I don't care what you like. It might be an annoyance.
Yep.
Um, but with the knowledge of how that light bulb connects, now that is concerning. Um, because a lot of the times people get into networks through specific devices that are connected to the network that aren't necessarily important, or mission critical devices, but because they're still attached to the network, it's a little doorway. So
Yeah, I think
initially my
I think
reaction
that's
is like,
the
I don't
takeaway
care.
there is it's a doorway, right? It's a jamming their foot into the door so you can't close it. So you got a light bulb on your network that you control with your phone. It's not a one-way street. And so you got doorbells, you got temperature gauges in your house, thermostats, what temperature is my fridge? Is the garage door open? All those little devices that make our lives more convenient. Are they secure? And whoever made it, who cares if a hacker gets into your doors open or not? Okay, so they can see if your door is open. The attack surface is microscopic, but in the grand scheme of hacking, that device is on your network. So I think I think the vulnerabilities in these IoT devices is really misunderstood, and the severity and the consequence of it is also misunderstood. That's why I praise the legislation that came out of England saying that all devices need unique IP or unique admin names and passwords. You can't just wholesale say it's admin and password is light bulb. You have to put a meaningful cryptic password for each device.
I think it's a huge deal, and I don't think a lot of people get that it is because a lot of people are buying these IoT devices like smart light switches, smart light bulbs. Everything kind of connects to the internet now. When even 5 years ago, that wasn't really a thing, or if it was super niche. But that's kind of always how it goes. Whatever is niche with technology, as soon as it catches, it spreads rapidly. And that's certainly something that's going on with these IoT devices. And um, there's going to be a lot of manufacturers out there that don't take the proper security precautions when they're creating these devices and setting up the security. And you can really get yourself into some hot water.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I remember back when they were contemplating the idea of Internet of Things. One of the articles I read said, yeah, I'm pulling from memory here, guys, so bear with me. Um, it said you could have an oven crossed with a refrigerator ready for your day. So you go out, you place your dish in the oven, which is set to cooling mode, and then you do your day. And then at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, the oven turns on, goes from cold to hot, prepares your meal. You can look at it on your phone and see what the status is of your dish. And if you get your schedule changed, you could say, okay, I'm going to be 3 hours late. I'm going to be 2 hours late, and you hit a button, and it goes from cook mode to keep it warm, or go the other direction. Say turn it back into a fridge and cool off the dish, and you have cold leftovers. But I mean, it's a cool idea to have control over your appliances in your house. But I don't think anybody's got an idea that it's a secure system, that you're going to be able to keep the hackers out. Convenience versus security. How many times have we heard that mantra?
Right.
More convenient it is, the less secure it becomes.
And I think one of the better ways right now to kind of prevent a lot of that access, unwanted access, is by segmenting your networks, right? Um, by using uh, two separate networks for, one network. I'm going to throw all of my smart IoT devices on it. Things that aren't very, they don't hold necessarily important information, like a light bulb or a switch or an oven, anything like that. And then your computer, your mobile devices, things that actually, have access to really important files or information, those all go on a separate network, which essentially just adds another layer of security. Because if someone gets into a light switch, then the only other thing they can see on that network are all the other light switches or ovens, and they don't get to see your computer or other devices like that.
And so they could throw an involuntary light switch rave in your house, but your data's safe.
Right.
It could be fun. There's a disco, but my computer is fine. Yeah, there's many ways of setting up those networks, and one of the easiest ways and probably more secure ways is having two routers, one plugged into the other. You set your home on the very inside edge, and then that little router with secure controls and all that plugs into your Internet of Things router, and then that router plugs into the internet. So you kind of double hop through to get to the internet. It's actually a lot safer that way. That it's hard to hack through two firewalls, especially for different brands. Hard to hack through those.
Right.
I should say harder. The right hacker, it's nothing.
Or the right vulnerability.
The wrong vulnerability at the wrong time.
Yeah. And, looking at a bunch of the items that are out there, you've got end of life devices that they're not going to get fixed. And if it's still on the network, it's a vulnerability point.
Yeah, what was that? That D-Link just got that. They had over 10,000 old network attached storage devices. So it's you buy a hard drive, you plug it in to this D-Link NAS box, and it's on your network and it's sharing data. It's having a great time. Um, Shodan showed that there was something like 14,000 of them online and still working, but they were so old that D-Link has said we're not going to support. We're not going to send new firmware. Somebody found a massive vulnerability. D-Link said it's an old box. Buy another one.
Yeah,
So
tough luck.
yeah, no, and that's the push pull, right? We've got a situation where technology is lasting longer than anticipated. If the lifespan is 7 years and these things are 10, does D-Link have a legal obligation to updates? Or, at what point does a manufacturer become relieved of the responsibility? At what time does a consumer get notified this is dead, stop using it?
Mhm. Because if you look at it from the manufacturer's perspective, they don't make any money off of that. If I mean, usually they stop selling it, they've got a new model out. Yet they're still
Hmm.
forced to support it. They have to have a team that is working on it and constantly revising any type of code or anything like that. I mean, it's just a loss to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and these companies make billions of dollars, sure, but they also make hundreds of products, and if it takes thousands of hours to support hundreds of products, um, how long do you run that for the consumers? Hey, what's the critical mass? When does it become no longer a serious issue? Is it 500 users? Is it 2 users?
Hmm.
Um, but I think having a planned obsolescence also is not a good idea because then you're taking these network attached storage and turning them into e-waste. And do we want to really legislate that a company is going to turn a laptop or a monitor or refrigerator into e-waste?
Well, then
I
you
mean,
get into the question, and I don't know the legality behind it, but what if they? Oh boy, here we go again with subscriptions. Then you have to subscribe to keep getting the updates, right?
yeah, and if done right, I could see the subscription being a useful tool. But how many people look at subscriptions as profit centers instead of support centers?
Right.
If the subscription was $2 a month, sure. If it was $10 a year, great. If it's $20 a month, I'm not doing that.
Hmm.
Not to keep a 7-year-old piece of equipment up and running.
Right.
And then never mind the conversation on the free and open source stuff. Who's responsible for updating those packages? If somebody retires or says, "Oh, hey, this project isn't interesting to me anymore," I'm giving it up, and it's vulnerable, but thousands of people are still using the code. Where does that stand? I mean, these are questions I think society's going to have to answer in a big way. My preference is education. Know what it is you've got and understand that service isn't forever, and the hardware will die, but the software will die sooner.
Hmm.
Maybe. I guess hard drives die sooner than software.
And going back to the UK law, there is a required update schedule for any new smart devices so that
Hmm.
people know when they're no longer going to get any updates for it. So you don't have a fly-by-night company come in and say, "Oh, we're doing this." They're still going to be liable for any vulnerabilities that need to be fixed, even if their company goes under. So
It's just a
that's
good thing.
It's just one of those things that exists now.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Now, the UK law, has that begun to take some effect in the US at all? Do you know?
Um, Only on
There's been
devices that are
ideas.
being sold in both locations because it's just easier for them to make the changes instead of have two separate lines.
Right, right. Makes sense.
Yeah, I would love to see our legislative bodies pick this up and run with it. But hey, hopefully soon. Let's see, what else we got? We got Twitter, uh, Twitter X, the scam that is going around.
Yeah.
Who wants that
Um,
one?
so basically, somebody discovered a scam. The scam in question was it's a unique approach, but it's one to look out for, especially if you work for a company and you've got your social media listed on your corporate profile. Um, One person changed their handle, say it was Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and they did not have it updated on their corporate profile. So somebody came in, took the old name, and was using the credentials to reach out to people saying, "Hey, I'm a recruiter. I'm interested in talking to you. Hey, can you download this program so that we can talk face to face?" And convinced at least one person, to download and install malware. So it's make sure that everything is up to date online, especially if you're changing email addresses, if you're changing um, social media presence, that kind of stuff. So that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, and that's probably the best advice we could give is just make sure that your point of um, common recovery. I think that's the best way to say it. Your email address. That should be super safe, super secure. You should always have the password. Um, don't write it down, but well, maybe do write it down. I guess that's more safe nowadays than
I know
any
we've
other
gone
method. But
backwards, haven't we?
Do not store your
yeah, it used to be.
passwords in plain text file on your hard drive anywhere,
What could possibly go wrong with that? It's having your passwords in a keeper is a great idea. I know many people that are now using little black books to write all their passwords in. It's good, but it's also you could lose that book and lose access. So I mean, it's you got to decide what works for you. YubiKeys are awesome. IDO keys, those things are good, but really, any account that you got, if it gets hacked, you need to have a recovery point. Um, then you got to act fast. I feel bad for the person that got tricked into installing malware. That's deeply unfortunate.
especially when it comes from, "Hey, we might have work for you."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they do have work for you. A whole lot of picking up the pieces.
Right.
Um,
And that's not the work you wanted, but get to do it now.
right.
50, 52 card pickup on your computer.
Mm, not a fun game. And you guys, I've held the hand of people that have had that happen to. It's um, as fun as it is to poke at it. There's real consequence. I don't think these hackers understand that. But if you follow your standard process, don't download software from a guy you just met, or guy standing in an alleyway trying to sell you a radio. Um, you know, don't go outside of the standard distribution channels. And if there's some weird connection tool that someone needs, be suspicious. Go with your gut. I got to say, all of us have a gut check on things, and if things feel right, then okay, there's a chance. If things feel just a little odd or a little too good to be true, go with your gut. But really, what's the problem in asking extra questions? I mean, if they're legit, they'll answer 55 questions on the subject.
And one thing, John, you said earlier, I think when we were talking about uh giving device support after um they've been out for, or discontinued for a certain number of years. You talked about, it's important. You can either decide to just buy a new one or keep yourself informed. And talking about this as well, it reminds me of our own news website, just to give a little shout out there. A lot of the times, these vulnerabilities or these scams, we actually write about them, post them, and
Mhm.
it's a good way to keep yourself informed of these things, because that's really the best way to avoid things is once you become familiar with, oh, that's what a scam looks like, or this might be fishy.
Yeah,
You really do help yourself.
yeah, and thanks for the shout out on that. That's a great idea. The news website is designed as a 1 minute read, so anybody that's curious what's going on in the world can check it out. And if you want more information, you can follow breadcrumbs to the original sources. Get get as deep into the subject as you want. But yeah, the fact that there's so many vulnerabilities, it really leads back to the same conclusions. How do I protect myself? And it's two-factor authentication, YubiKey, strong password, and don't give information out to strangers. Uh, don't click suspicious links. Don't volunteer your information to somebody that calls you. I can't say that one loud. Anybody that calls you saying that they're your bank or a trusted relative or somebody, or even you're from your office, if they call you, be suspicious and ask questions. Set up a face-to-face meeting if you can. Go talk to them, shake their hand, and say, "Hey, you asked for something. How can I help you?" Because there are chances that things go really bad. Just giving information to somebody that calls you.
So,
Well, I guess that was a fantastic point. Got everybody speechless now. Yeah, it's be suspicious, be paranoid, because literally they're out to get you right now. And that's kind of the general security posture in the world is trying to figure out how to anticipate the inroads and how do you protect yourself from them. Um, so I believe it was the Federal Trade Commission put in a notice. Um, so Jackson, I don't know if I've taught you about this. SCADA. It's it's a protocol set, a standard interface for industrial automation equipment.
Hmm.
I don't want
It's a
to. I
piece of
don't want to get.
software.
No, I don't want to get too nerdy into it, but it's the programmable logic controllers and the way
Yeah.
that they interface with each other and communicate that data to the monitor, so you can watch whatever's going on. So if you're monitoring like a trash facility, you can see the levels of the trash building up. If you're
Right.
monitoring an incinerator, you can see is the incinerator on. You could monitor a bakery. Are the ovens cooking? Is the conveyor belt moving? That kind of. So SCADA is a thing. SCADA is a protocol by which these controllers talk. And just recently, there was a scan of the internet. Thousands of programmable logic controllers were publicly on the internet. Now, we're talking Internet of Things, right? They don't care about security. These programmable logic controllers are designed to do a job. They do one thing and they do it well. They do it reliably, consistently, and they never stop. who cares? Who's going to try and break into that and stop the conveyor belt feeding the bread machine?
Mhm.
Um, well, a whole bunch of bad guys. That's who. They want to get in and they want to cause as much havoc as possible. So if they can hack into your PLC, then they can actually take over your production. They can grind it to a halt, or worse yet, um, cost you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Well,
Yeah,
when it
this
comes
this
to
reminds
critical,
me,
go ahead.
and you can tell me if this is a bit the same thing or it's different. I think it was something like 6 years ago, a long time ago. It doesn't feel that long ago, but I think it is. Um, there was an event where a water, what do they call it? Like a water filtering or the city's water plant essentially. Um, somebody had installed TeamViewer on it, and a hacker got into their TeamViewer account and was actually able to modify the levels of certain chemicals or in the water that
I
then would
do
have,
I do know that case.
yeah. And I think that's something that people don't realize is that, I mean, they could have taken out an entire city.
Yeah, if you take any of those chemicals which are supposed to be like 10 parts per million or 20 parts per million,
Hmm.
crank it up to 100,000 parts per million, um, that's gonna have some serious impact. That hack was actually caught because somebody was watching the screen and watching the mouse move and do things that it wasn't supposed to, and they intervened before catastrophe hit.
Right.
Now, here's probably Jackson, you stumbled across possibly the best way of explaining this. The SCADA control system was the one the hacker got control of. They didn't get the controllers, the PLCs. They got a hold of the control system that manages all the PLCs. So they were able to look at the graphs, look at the dials and sliders, and move things around in a graphical form. Um, and the way they were able to do that is because somebody wanted remote access from home to monitor the system. All of us want to be able to do our job from home, right? Or better yet, we want an alert from home when um, something goes off the rails. You need a notification, like you're out of chemical, or water's not flowing correctly. You need that notification to say, "Hey, wake up, come get me. I need
Hmm.
help." Um, so there's got to be connection to the outside world at some level. It's finding a secure connection. TeamViewer in that case was not a good choice. Somebody got in through a default password onto a screen share that should never have been online. Or at least it should not have been on a public side. Should have been behind VPNs or two-factor authentication credentials, something to keep it from the world. Um, but the problem right now is they're finding it's not those control computers that are online. It's the actual PLCs that are public facing on the internet with seriously weak passwords. Like Jackson, 12345 would be a password on some of these devices, or zero
Yikes.
zero zero zero. They don't change it because the guys that are putting these together have an idea of, we're going to build the system, it's going to do its job, and I'm going to monitor it from home. They don't think, and a hacker could hack into this too.
Hmm. And
So the
that's a little
FTC
bit
has said,
scarier, I think, with what you're talking about, because I mean, uh, it's harder to catch that, isn't it? If someone can actually get into that code.
well, and it for I can't fathom why you would put one live on the internet, not behind a firewall, right?
Right.
Like even a $20 router from Walmart would do better than what they've got now. Uh, don't don't do that. Anybody, don't put a $20 firewall between you and critical infrastructure. So the government has said to all critical infrastructure, unplug your systems from the internet today. That's good, but a lot of the SCADA systems have switched to cloud-based services. They have to talk to the internet because a lot of regulatory agencies require you to report let's take the water plant for an example. You've got to report how much water, how much fluoride, how much chlorine, how many, all the chemicals that they use,
Hmm.
how much, and at what day, what time, when did it happen, what was the pH level at that event, and you got to track it because that's how the system's done. Without those regulatory reports, the systems would run without any checks and balances. Well, the upshot is we're recording it. The downside is it's being recorded onto the cloud. It means it's connected to the internet. So how do you connect a system with a password of 1234 and have it connected to the cloud and not talk? Well, there's firewalls to do that, right? I don't know. I feel like I'm getting on a monologue, guys. This is one of my passions: how to protect the infrastructure.
Good passion.
Oh yeah, no, we got to keep this stuff safe. So, given that it's not easy to block the internet from your devices without a firewall, put a firewall. But then, if you got multiple water plants, how do you keep those in sync with each other? You got to have a VPN or secure circuits in between. Critical infrastructure should not be touching the internet, period. It should be air gapped. It should be completely separate.
And it
But for
should
some
be,
reason, there's a lot of it out there.
and it should also be pointed out that all of the air gap hacks that um, people have been testing and using are not very applicable in the real world because they all require access to the area. And so that's just, if you hear about air gap hacks, they are extremely limited in what they can do.
Yeah, they're rare, hard to pull off, and any security expert with an eye towards um, paranoia will keep you safe. I don't know, Jackson. I just did a massive mind dump there. What do you think?
It's a lot of information, especially a lot of things that I'm not super familiar with myself. I'm not a huge network guy, you could say, but it's just hard because when we think about technology, there are so many uh, niches within that. I'm in one myself. I'm currently going through my bachelor's degree of computer engineering, right? And that's a more of a general one, but I mean, there are degrees in networking and there's cybersecurity. There's so many different um, parts of technology that it's it doesn't surprise me that there are lots of companies or lots of organizations like that where they've got holes in certain areas. Um,
Hmm.
and cybersecurity is one of those common ones, and I think that's why there's such a big market for um, the job. There's a big job market for cybersecurity experts.
It, there is a massive opportunity for people that want to take up the challenge and fight the good fight. Um, there's some fantastic tools and resources out there, and we're getting kind of close to the bottom of the hour here. Um, so let's first off, let's talk about AI bots are being used to hack into things. Um, the fact that Shodan, which is a service that scans the internet for what's out there, it catalogs and indexes absolutely everything. These bots are being designed to hack into devices, and true to form, we're using AI to build bots to defend against it. And so that's kind of cool. Um, so the back and forth is turning into a thing. Artie, do we have any examples of AI bots?
Just proof of concept attacks that were done in laboratory conditions, but it demonstrates that even downloading one of these large language models from online, you can use it to leverage against targets. They explicitly
Mhm.
went for targets that were not known to the bots, like vulnerabilities that were released after the fact. And how can I word it properly? The vulnerabilities were released after the version of the AI that they're using came in. So it wasn't trained on any of that, and they've been able to leverage it with relatively high, about 50% success rate, which,
So the bots trained on previous vulnerabilities looked at
yes,
this new software and based on the track record of previous vulnerabilities, hacked into the new software.
have, they were able to find the vulnerabilities that they didn't know anything about.
That's impressive.
So this also demonstrates that the AI can be used to find the vulnerabilities that it has absolutely no clue about, without the direction of this is what you're looking for from the researchers. So it's just you're
Yeah.
looking for a vulnerability, go and see if you can find one there, and they find them um, depending upon the large language model that they were using. Uh, that affected the outcome. One I think was at 53%, and one was at 16%. While against, I'd have to look at the research again.
Yeah, just looking at it here, it looks like a lot of these were, or some of them were at least based off of ChatGPT 4, right? And
Hmm.
so that brings up the question, ChatGPT, especially with the newest version of 4.0, um, brings so many cool things to the table as far as capabilities. But then you see things like this where they can actually take these models and use them kind of against the rest of us, right?
Yep. But the other side of it is that people like these researchers are finding the ways of using it to find the vulnerabilities before other people do, help fix them, or to develop a countermeasure to AI intrusion.
Right.
Well, and
Which in that
that's
case,
one of
it's
those.
a
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Jackson.
No,
I
you
was
first.
I was gonna say in that case, then it becomes just a huge plus, um, for everybody.
Well, and we do use tools here at WoW Support that leverage AI to detect irregular patterns or passwords stored in clear text on computers. We do use systems that do look for those patterns and raise the flag, and humans get involved pretty quick to stop what's going on. Um, it's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we brought to the table is um, we want to use AI to the best possible outcome, which is forewarning and rapid response. Because in this day and age, you can exfiltrate. We were talking Microsoft recall. Um, there was an exploit that was written. It was so good that it completely downloaded the user's database before Microsoft Defender discovered that it was there and shut it down. So it's a cat and mouse, but if we get better detection and multiple layers of protection, then we got a fighting chance.
So you're saying that I need to install every antivirus that's out there and have them all running simultaneously?
Yes, yeah, try it, see what happens.
Don't do that.
Have you ever seen a computer cry?
Yes.
uh, no, don't install two antiviruses at the same time. That will kill your computer because
It
the
becomes the
analogy I
Spider-Man
use.
meme, right? Where you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, so two antiviruses. If you have two antiviruses installed, one of them will scan a file, the other one will see the file is open and say, hey, let me check that before you look at it. It checks that. This system says, hey, that file is open. Let me check that before you open that. And so then they fight over the same file. Eventually they get through that. And then they look at the next file. If you've ever boot a computer, there's tens of thousands of files that it has to go through to turn on. So these antiviruses will drag the computer to its knees. Putting a third on it, I could not imagine what that would do. I've never been brave enough to try to read antiviruses.
I think we ought to make a video about it. We should just see how many antiviruses we can install on a single system
Try to break
before
a
it becomes
computer by doing
unusable.
that.
Get the fastest computer we can possibly get our hands on and turn it into an absolute toaster.
I'm gonna save that idea for later.
Hmm,
I'm now
Could be
intrigued.
fun. I'm curious on that too. How many is too many? Huh. Well, let's talk about the one that I'm real excited to announce. WoW Support has joined up with Adam Networks. It's on the AdamOne firewall. This firewall is one of those fantastic tools that will help in the struggle with all the stuff we've been talking about. The key ingredient on it is don't talk to strangers. So there's zero trust in the communication, and if it doesn't know who you're talking to, you don't get to talk to. The analogy I use for talking to people is, if you go to the airport, you get on a plane, you got to go through security, you got to go through ticketing, everybody checks your ID, you go through an X-ray machine, your bags are scanned. But on your way out of the airport, nobody checks. Nobody looks at your ID. Nobody says, "Are you sure you know where you're going? Are you sure you're supposed to be going that way?" This firewall puts a check on the outbound traffic from your network, and it will say, "Where do you think you're going?" And if you're not supposed to go there, it will not let you go there. So the antivirus, or not antivirus, but a malware that hits your computer can't reach back home to mommy and say, "What should I do next?" It's shut down at the gateway, the firewall. So you can't even get to the internet to find out what to do next.
Which at that point it really just becomes a useless thing on your computer that's only just slowing it down. Which I much prefer that than to a piece of malware that is actually talking to somebody else, right?
There's actually it goes the other direction. There was one instance we didn't install it. It's Adam, the Adam team put it in on a system, and the boss came over and said, "Hey, what'd you guys do?" And like, What did we break? Like, no, my computer's working 6 times faster.
Wow,
All the viruses on the computer couldn't talk back out to the websites they were harvesting and sending data to.
that's incredible.
So it saw that it was offline, so it wasn't doing it. Now that's not something to bank on. You can't count on your computer getting faster just because you get this firewall. But it is a fantastic resource to prevent unauthorized communication out from the network. So if you've got an employee or you've got somebody at home who clicks on that link, the trick, tricking the users into clicking on bad links to really bad websites, it won't get there if it's set up right.
So,
I think
I got a question that was asked of me regarding so what differentiates this from, say, installing a Pi hole?
Very good question. Very good question. So a Pi hole is a DNS server that you can control the entries manually. There are also online services like OpenDNS where you can do similar kinds of things. A Pi hole will take the DNS. Well, let's take doubleclick.net. Most everybody knows what that is. It's an ad tracking service. So the Pi hole will say doubleclick.net doesn't exist, or it'll put it to a fictitious IP address. This firewall, the Atom firewall, does one step further. It says if it's not in the trusted list of IP or domains, you cannot talk to that IP address. More specifically, you can't talk to any IP address that isn't on the list. So the nightclubs where you got the guy with the velvet rope and the clipboard sitting there just so I don't see your name on the list. You don't get past the rope. So you can set up a command and control server to go on an IP address directly without a name. If your firewall blocks that IP address, you're not getting to it. Now, the reason this is so revolutionary is because all the what ifs have been worked through and figured out. What if that IP address used to be on a good server, but now it's in bad person's hands? There's a control for that. If the IP address is or if the domain name is brand new, what do we do to handle that? What do you do if it's actually a useful site that isn't on the list, and I need to go check out, I don't know, let's say MajorLeagueBaseball.com. If that wasn't on the list, users, not the IT administrator, you can have the IT admin look at it, but your IT guy doesn't have to look at all the users' requests if you set it up to say users can say, I need to look at the baseball content for this week because I've got business to do on MajorLeagueBaseball.com. You can set up the rules to allow and disallow. You can manage the flow in and out better with categorical rules, and you can ensure that anything that's not whitelisted is absolutely blocked.
And I
Jackson,
think
I think you
that's
had a question.
I was gonna say that's great because how many new threats pop up every day, right? And so you can't
One
keep
or
your
two.
you can't keep your blacklist full, right? But your whitelist you can usually keep a pretty good handle on. Um, so I think that's what's really exciting about this is it kind of flips the head on what everyone has done previously with firewalls is, pay attention to what's incoming, and now we're paying attention to both what's incoming and what's outgoing. Um,
Yeah, this system literally puts the entire internet on the blacklist. You can't get to it except for those sites that are business worthy. Somebody did a survey, 13,000 business related useful websites. So Facebook, Microsoft, all those. There's 13,000 really good websites out there. Now I got these numbers from Adam directly. Um, if 83 or like 86% of the new domains registered are registered for hacker purposes to make malware or track um, viruses and infections, well, let's just block them before they're even allowed into our system.
no, I've got a question for you, John.
Yeah.
Considering someone who maybe does a lot of research for their job, what does that look like for them, right? Because I mean, they're going to be surfing a lot of websites that may not be considered to be on that list that you were talking about.
Well, and that's where the network administrator, when they set it up, has to make decisions. How lenient and how secure should they go? So if you're searching for like cybersecurity, if you're searching hacking websites specifically, there's a good chance one of those is going to infect your system. So the administrator is going to look at it and say, none of that's allowed here.
Mm-hmm.
So then that gets really precarious, but you're surfing safe.
Right.
If you're doing some research and stuff like that, you can set up a sandbox on the outside of the network on a machine that's basically like a burner phone. Set
Yeah.
up one of those. But there's other ways around things. I mean, we were talking AI. The system uses some fantastic AI to parse and search through websites to see, is it good? Is it bad? What are the categories it represents? And grant or not grant access based on that information.
That brings up a question that some people might ask regarding it. If somebody uses a VPN, can they tunnel through it?
Short answer is no, because your VPN has to connect to a known IP address or a known DNS address. And if neither of those are on the whitelist, it won't get out.
Essentially, it's too good to be true.
It really is. I mean, I can't talk how revolutionary this technology is. Um, Many people have tried, but these guys have been doing it for a decade. Their business has been protecting networks all across the world for a long time. They've got some seasoned experts there that are well into cybersecurity. Um, so, anyways, I don't want to take all of our time on that, but we're going to bring more information to everybody next week. Um, hopefully, hopefully we'll have some good answers for questions. So, if you're watching this, you want to see the follow up and see if we can get some good answers. Please ask some questions and subscribe to this stream so that you can tune in next week when we go live. Ask questions between now and then, and we will do our best to answer those. Any last thoughts there, Artie or Jackson?
I don't have any. It's exciting.
I'm super excited to show this. Um, I'm just tickled that we're able to help bring this product to the market. We're one of the resellers for Adam now. So hallelujah. We're going to change the world
In a good way.
in a good way. Yes. Make the world a better place. Leave it better than you found it.
Got nothing
Well,
on
that's
my
all I've
end.
got for this. Go ahead, Artie.
I got nothing on my end.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a good stop point. We're gonna say good night and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for tuning in and watching this. Um, Wherever you may be, take it easy.
Have a good one.